And I hope I didn't malign you, Councillor Walker. So we have three requests for public input from Steve Abel relating to the Canal Road native trees, from the Maritime Union of New Zealand relating to the independent review of health and safety on the wharves, and from the Exterior Cleaning Industry Association, which is in relation to item number 9 on the review of drought restrictions. Look, just conscious that at a recent meeting, Committee of the Whole, people were using the opportunity of public input not to ask questions but to make comments, and I remind councillors of Standing Order 7.7.6 that members may not debate the item and should do this under any appropriate item on the agenda. So we'll each of the presenters will have their 5 minutes, which will be strictly enforced by Sandra, and then up to 3 questions for each presenter, but questions please, not debating points. So could I invite Steve Abel please to the table to speak on the Canal Road trees. Steve, welcome. You push your button on the right and a red light will come on. That means you're live. So you have 5 minutes starting from now. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for accepting an opportunity to speak. And I want to make it clear to Sandra, our insistence on coming today, despite suggestions of other committee meetings, was basically to do with the urgency of this matter. At any point, the remainder of the trees at Canal Road could be cut down. And it's only because of the efforts of members of the community and more recently in the last few weeks the arboricultural community who've directly taken action to protect these native trees that are of very significant age, size and ecological importance. There are among the trees still standing 40 native trees. You have an inventory in your inbox this morning of those, and of those 23 to 27 would be regarded as significant for their size, their grandeur or their rareness, and I speak specifically of the kawaka and the 2 black maere, of which there are potentially no other examples in Auckland. These trees are destined to be felled on the condition of the developer when purchasing the property from the Raymonds. Unfortunately, the council has a poor record on this matter dating back at least 9 years ago, which would take most of you out of the heat, but 9 years ago when the Raymonds offered to sell the land to the council, it was not taken. This is an exceptional, unprecedented arboretum of native trees, and when it is gone, it is irreplaceable essentially. Even though many of the trees have been felled, what we have left is still exceptional. There's nothing like it. And I hope if you do ask a question that I might invite one of our arborists to speak to that. Just to let you know who's here, we have Zane Wedding, who's an arborist. We have Hannah, who is also an arborist. Both of them have been in trees recently. We have Mackenzie Lee, who is the grandson of William Lee, who first stood in front of the truck 79 days ago today to stop any further trees from being felled. We have Tarina, who's a local, and Miro, who are locals. We have Luke and Michelle and Elliot and others who have all been part of the campaign to protect these trees. We cannot sustain this. We are technically illegally occupying private land. Many of us have trespassers against us, have been arrested. I have a bail condition. It's an act of civil, peaceful disobedience, but we need the intervention of council to solve it. We have no issue with landowners getting their rightful money for their land. But it requires us to do that. There is an offer on the table, which is also in your inbox. A developer is prepared to put in $4.2 million for the 4 properties, but that is short $600,000 for the cost of the existing contract holder to exit the contract. And we're very clear about those figures. Those figures are very clear. We know we need 4.8 to get the properties, the 4 properties. And notable also in your inbox this morning, I would have put it on a PowerPoint, but we weren't sure we're going to be able to present, is a diagram showing that the majority of the remaining trees are on 56 Canal Road, which is an L-shaped property. That would be an obvious, at the bare minimum, pocket park or reserve and a superb arboretum for the city. And that could be acquired with time in a 12-month settlement arrangement through land swaps and land exchanges, which obviously take time for the council and so forth. But to save the trees from the chainsaw, we need immediate action on this. And we need the existing contract owner or the Raymond family who technically own the properties to be contacted, and it needs to be made clear to them that there are serious, credible efforts to find a way to acquire this site and these trees. Because currently they are frustrated, as everybody is, and they simply want their money, and we need council intervention and public intervention to save them at this stage. I just want to say that trees of this age and stature, as the Urban Ngāhere strategy points out, are the rarest trees in Auckland. Fewer than 6% of our standing trees are above 20 metres high, and a number of these trees fit in that category. They are all native. It's got extraordinary heritage. A gentleman in the 1920s planted all these trees, Walter Burgess, and so it's cultural heritage as well as natural heritage. And a stand on a site like this in the middle of Avondale will never exist again because of the scale of the site. Once it's gone and developed, there's nowhere else you would plant trees like this, and you would have to wait 100 years for them to grow. And the rarest ones there, the Kawaka and the Black Maire, are essentially irreplaceable. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Steve, and thank you very much for keeping to time. So just looking to see if there's any questions from within the room and online. The first question is from Councillor Pipaku.
Tēnā koe, Steve. Kia ora koutou, and thank you for coming along to present with everybody. And thank you for your advocacy. After we had the presentation at the Environment and Climate Change Committee, Chair Hills and I followed up and looked at a variety of options in terms of what we could do. What we got stuck on is that there was no willing seller to come into an arrangement. Is what you're saying that situation has changed, that there is now a willing seller at the right price?
Basically, and in the context of obviously confidential arrangements, which I understand makes it complex to have the conversation in a public forum, it's very clear to us that $4.8 million will acquire the properties. And that's, I won't go into specific detail about that, but that is the case as we understand it. And we currently have 4.2 on the table from a beneficent developer who will, for the price of $600,000, given a permanent caveat on the felling of the significant remaining trees. It gets the properties into a state of protection from immediate threat and enables time in a 12-month settlement to work out how to do a land swap and acquire the reserve for the council. It's the best thing we have available to us if Kāinga Ora aren't going to step in, if we need the council to step in. And for $600,000, you really are preserving something that is exceptional in the city and in the country, in fact. Yeah. So the situation, I think, has changed since you first made those efforts. The Canal Road land swap that was offered for the Canal Road Reserve was not like for like. It was a lower CV value property, it was a smaller property, and it's completely understandable why the Raymonds didn't accept that offer. And so we need to buy time to find a way to provide an offer that is more acceptable. And in terms of green space in Avondale, there are 600,000 Kāinga Ora houses going in there, which is a great thing, but that means a green space like this is all the more valuable and all the more important to retain and save, and it is a ready-made, exceptional native arboretum.
Thank you. Second question is online from Councillor John Watson. I have my three questions, councillors, so we'll close it off at the third, which is Tracy Mulholland. John, your question, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to you, Steve. Are you in contact with any specific officer within council over these, very recent developments? And depending on the answer to that, if not, then, Mr. Mayor, what's the sort of process for this new situation to at least be given some consideration and to see what the the relative components are, given the urgency here. So Steve, first of all, is there anyone in council who's aware of these developments and investigating things?
So Paul Marriott Lloyd came down and spoke with us a couple of weeks ago. I spoke with him again on the phone yesterday. I was left with the impression from that conversation that there was no active pursuit on the part of the council for another land swap arrangement. I was also left with the impression that Kāinga Ora was not necessarily a viable option. We still hold out hope for Kāinga Ora taking action. Basically, the impression I was left with was that we needed to come to you as the governing body, and we needed to urgently ask for intervention of the elected councillors and the mayor, and basically some sort of instruction from you that you are prepared to have skin in the game, and you need to talk about finding unallocated budget to meet this $600,000 shortfall, because currently nobody else is going to be doing that. And so that's exactly the reason that I pushed so hard to come and speak to you today, because the fact is, unless the council's able to find some money or instruct Panuku to spend that money to save the site, these trees will be lost, and that will be a terrible blot on the city and a great loss to all of us as Aucklanders.
Thank you, Councillor Watson, and I'll address
Thanks, Steve.
your part of the
Mr.
question.
Mayor, sorry, just a question for you. I think we'd probably all appreciate a little guidance as to how the information we've received today might at least be considered by officers.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Watson. I'll address that after Councillor Mulholland's question. Thank you. Councillor Tracy Mulholland.
Kia ora. Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for those presenting. I do want to acknowledge that I have had discussions with Steve, so I think it's important to share that publicly. And Steve, thank you for sharing your thoughts with me. I also would like to acknowledge that I was invited to a meeting with Carmel Cepoloni, who I had actually visited in her office, well, actually next to her office, prior to, and I want to be very clear about this, prior to any of the groups forming, so that I could seek her views. Now, I want to also, and it will form part of my question, Your Worship, acknowledge that Carmel Cepoloni, at the request of two of the people involved with the group, myself and Kay Thomas, the chair of the Whai Local Board, did meet. My question is to you, Steve, and Steve, I'm actually watching you just so that you're aware. My question to you, Steve, is have you been advised formally if Kāinga Ora will be purchasing the land, and if not, when would you hope to hear from Kāinga Ora? And Your Worship, I would like clarification whether the group have direct, through you, Steve, or not, direct contact with the current contract sale of agreement group person, whoever it might be. Kia ora, thanks.
So Kāinga Ora are due to get back to us today or tomorrow with a response to our request that they seek to acquire this land. But the initial information we were given by Ian Butler when he came to visit us down at Canal Road was that it was very difficult to fit within the framework of their brief to justify the acquisition of a piece of land that would be potentially a reserve. And in summary, Kāinga Ora operates very similarly to a conventional developer. They seek to get as many houses on a plot of land as they can. Whilst they do have within their mandated legislation a consideration of community and environmental and climate considerations, we could not manage to convince them that saving a stand of native trees fit exactly within that brief, and it would be consistent with them providing a viable community for the people of Avondale with 600 new Kāinga Ora houses going into that area. And just to note that there's a lot of research that indicates, including from Chicago, that more green space has direct contribution to a lowering of the crime rate in neighbourhoods. And I think that what's happening in Avondale with the failure to recognise the huge loss of green space that is happening is that we're really creating a very poorly planned city in that regard. And if you look at an aerial image of Avondale, you'll see that this arboretum at Canal Road really stands out as exceptional. And it's absolutely a sitting duck for being acquired for permanent green space, and should be done as a matter of town planning and city planning and community planning. But I am saying as my final word here that there is no way it will happen unless you, the governing body of the Auckland Council, step in and make it happen. And we are doing everything we can. We are now 79 days. We are exhausted. We are strung out. We are facing criminal charges, and we need some action from the people who run and lead this city, or we're going to lose these trees. And that will honestly be a terrible loss and inconsistent with the plans and agendas of this council to be a sustainable city. For us to have a livable city and livable communities and a livable planet, we need to keep trees standing, and we need to keep these trees standing. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Steve. Thank you very much. I have two questions from councillors to me, so I'll address those first and make a brief finishing comment. The first question from Councillor Watson, on receipt of the letter from Steve this morning, we have contacted Paul Marriott-Lloyd to ask him to meet with Steve to be put in touch with the developer to explore any potential there may be to work through the developer if this is a way in which we could save the trees. So I have been working in response to the correspondence from Steve through Paul Marriott-Lloyd. He is the person that's responsible for this within the council structure, and we have asked him to do that. Secondly, in relation to the question from Councillor Tracy Mulholland, Tracy, both you and I, as you're aware, have had discussions with the local MP, Councillor MP Carmel Sepuloni, and she has in turn approached the Minister for Housing, or responsible for public housing, to check with Kāinga Ora whether there is a possibility of a land swap. We have indicated an interest, for example, in Canal Road Reserve as the possibility for that as a development area in exchange for an area with these beautiful trees on, which would make a far more appropriate park. Unfortunately, the answer from Kāinga Ora has been a no to us to date, and I haven't had any indication, and I think Councillor Mulholland, you haven't had any indication that they are prepared to change their mind on that. Can I just make finally a comment in relation to Councillor Papacoom? You're quite right. We have been told repeatedly there is no willing seller there. They've not been prepared to do that. We have all around this table had legal advice from council officers that we have no power to stop the destruction of those trees, however undesirable that destruction is, and it is a loss of a legacy grove of trees that I'm very familiar with from my time as a local MP in New Lynn. And we're equally aware, having been through an emergency budget, that we don't have the financial ability to buy land with high-value trees on each time a developer wants to cut them down. And you can't say we'll do it in this case, but we won't do it in any other case. And we do have rules around the council that we provide an equitable spread of reserves around the country, around the city and the region of the city. So around this council, we're satisfied we've taken every action that we're able to, Steve, short of purchasing the property, and for reasons that I've explained, that is not a viable proposition for us. But I am happy to explore this latest opportunity to see if there is a way of saving the trees. So Paul Marriott-Lloyd will be in touch with you today. We won't delay this because of the threat to the existence of the trees, and we'll talk directly to the developer to see if there is any possibility that an arrangement can be made in that way. So I'm happy to move that we receive the presentation from Steve Abel today and his colleagues that are here. Thank you for coming along and expressing your view. And Councillor Mulholland, maybe you might like to second that.
Thanks, Your Worship.
So I will put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried. Thank you, Steve, and Paul will be in touch with you today. Thank you. We now come to the second public input, which, if I can find it, is from the Maritime Union of New Zealand. They are online, so I'm looking around to see Russell and Craig. Can't see them here, but I'm told that they're Skyped in. So I'll double check. Sorry, we've got a mic on, might be yours, Russell. But welcome Russell and Russell Main, Secretary of the Auckland Branch of the Maritime Union, and Craig Harrison, the Assistant Secretary, to present to the governing body. Thank you very much. Russell, I presume you're leading.
Yes, just an apology for Craig, he's stuck in Wellington at the moment. I'd just like to open by thanking Your Worship, the Mayor and the councillors for the opportunity to address the council today. Our membership has asked me to pass on their sincere appreciation for the decision from the council to call for an independent review of the health and safety culture at the port company. This is the first time for a very long time that they can see that there is some hope to turn around the management culture and provide a safe workplace going forward. All workers want at the port company is the ability to belong to a union without fear of discrimination and actively improve health and safety for workers in the port. The reality is that following the tragic death of Amo, Maritime New Zealand have acted as a regulator and issued the port company with an improvement notice creating an exclusive zone for lashes on the vessels. This action in itself has drastically improved the safety for lashes at the port. However, this should have already been in place and managed. And it should have been actioned by the company immediately following the accident. Unfortunately, it took the actions of the regulator to put this in place. This death at the workplace was totally avoidable and should never have happened. The announcement of the review is proactive and positive for workers. But in saying this fantastic initiative must be given every opportunity to achieve the best results for the council as owners and workers as stakeholders. This will require the best people with the correct skills to be available to oversee and run the review. We ask you as the shareholder and representatives of the people of Auckland to make this review a real success by allocating the right resources in the terms of reference. The union has a very minor amendment to the terms of reference that we would ask the council to consider. We believe that this change would assist the review. The Maritime Union has already stated publicly that it fully supports this review. We ask you to consider the question when you deliberate on this matter. Why have the management of the port company publicly not supported the review today? I know you're operating on a tight schedule, so I'll not keep you any longer, but leave you with this message from our members. All we want is a fair go. We want shift links that are based on science, which provide a work-life balance, and the right to return home to family and friends at the end of the day's work. Appreciate you giving us this time, and I welcome any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you very much, Russell, and I'll just get you to turn your mic off while the question's being asked, because we'll otherwise have this feedback that we're suffering from at the moment. Thank you, that's good. So just looking around, we have discussed this fully with councillors, but I have a question.
I don't have a question, but I'll save my comments for later.
You have to make your comments when the item comes up, Councillor Henderson. A question from Councillor Pipacoom.
Good morning, Russell. Thank you for presenting to us today. I just wondered if you could clarify, you said that the MUNS had a minor amendment that you'd like to make to the terms of reference. I didn't catch what you thought that should be. Would you be able to just clarify what amendment you think is needed, please?
Yes, thank you, Pippa. It's under the amendment number 4 key principles, paragraph E, and attached to that of the existing wording, where the existing wording says, while the review is not an investigation into specific incidents, discussion of previous incidents should be used as examples if applicable. we would like to add, were such incidents reported and what eventuated, these incidents need to be considered to assess the quality of POAL controls.
What I'll do, Russell, if I can get you to just email that, please, to council, so that we've got a written copy of it, so that we can consider that when we're looking at the terms of reference. So if you can do that, please. Well, I'll get somebody to give you a ring and get it off you. Right. Any further questions? Councillor Josephine Bartley.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Russell, for your presentation. What would satisfy you in terms of the safety of the workers regarding our independent review, so that, you know, the union's not thinking that this is a way for the directors of Ports of Auckland to defend themselves? Just thinking about how everyone's trying to work together here. What would satisfy you guys that this isn't just trying to defend Ports of Auckland's board?
It's a very good question, isn't it? Well, I guess what would satisfy, first of all, is the independence of the reviewers that are going in to undertake the review, and to make sure that they operate separately from the management as it exists in the port company currently. The influence of the management of the port company is powerful. It reaches out not only into the workforce, but into customers and into the area of the board. So the independent and the resources for that review are extremely important. So we think that there is a requirement, well, not a requirement, but we think it would be really helpful if that review had aspects of experts in the health and safety region, experts in the best way to get participation out of workers and unions in the area. And we also think that it's really important that the union has an input into that review, and that interviews are taken of workers so that they can give their side of the story to date, from the reforms to the hours of work and procedures that took place in the port company following the 2012 dispute. I hope that assists you with that question.
Thank you. And the third and last question is Councillor Shane Henderson.
Well, I just remembered my question, Russell, and you've gone ahead and answered it. But well done to you guys down at the port. I suppose I'll ask it anyway. So, in terms of appointing an independent reviewer, in terms of key competencies, would you say that health and safety expertise is a key competency in that regard?
Yeah, I certainly do, because it would be hard to undertake the review of the health and safety of the port company unless you had an extensive background in health and safety and how that relates to the guidance set out in workplace and, of course, governance for boards. So it may be that our opinion may be is that it may require more than one reviewer in there, so that there is expertise in different areas, so that the review can provide the best result for the council and for the workers there.
Cool, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that, and thank you for your presentation. Russell, you'll be able to follow our discussion on that online in item number 11, which will be coming up, who knows, in the early part of our meeting, shall I say. That's probably the safest thing. Look, just 2 points. One, absolutely the independence and competence and expertise of the reviewer is critical to the success of the review, and that's what we will be seeking. Secondly, I have to say that when I told the Ports of Auckland that we were going to conduct the review, they were in agreement with it. I have not had any public pushback from them about the need for this review following 3 fatalities and 4 or 5 prosecutions in recent times. We need to know that if there are systemic problems with health and safety at the port, that these will be fixed. And I should just let you know that this morning I received a letter from WorkSafe and Maritime New Zealand saying they support the independent review of health and safety by Auckland Council, and that this action demonstrates the kind of leadership, responsibility and accountability that is envisaged under the Health and Safety at Work Act. So it's good to see that Council has got support from the two regulatory organisations. Look, I'll ask Kathy Casey to move the resolution that we received the presentation and from Russell, and thank him for his attendance. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Josephine Bartley has seconded. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. I declare that carried. Thank you very much, Russell, and we'll keep in touch on the progress of the review. Thank you. Right, we come now to the third item on our agenda, when I can find my run sheet, which is the presentation from the Exterior Cleaning Industry Association, and this presentation is being made by Brian Edwards. I'll just double check I've got you online, Brian.
Yes, I'm here.
Absolutely, and that's great. And if we can make sure that when you're talking, we'll have our mics off, and when we're talking, if you can turn your mic off, and we deal with any problems with feedback. Okay, you've got 5 minutes, and then we've got up to 3 questions. So we look forward to your presentation. Thank you very much, Brian.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be able to speak today on behalf of the Exterior Cleaning Industry Association. So I'm the Vice President of the association. 2020 is a year in business in Auckland to remember, with 2 COVIDs, 1 water restriction, and now 1 broken bridge. All have an impact on our industry. ECIA has members that are not only national-wide businesses like Edwards and Hardy, MWash, WashRite. We also have family-owned and operated businesses like Woody and Nadine at ProWash, where their sole income supports their family with 2 kids. We would like to take this opportunity to thank Watercare for the time they have made available for the workshops to ensure that they understand our industry. Thanks to Ravine in his latest media release for the acknowledgement that our industry was misunderstood. So while I'm talking, I'd like the following pictures, which are up on screen, which is great. You will see in front of you what our industry sees on a daily basis. We remove moss and mould, contaminants, and make surfaces safe and healthy. If we can just flick through some of those pictures, that would be great. People have the right to live in a healthy home and a workplace, and mould comes in several options: black, green, red, and toxic. They can be mistaken for dirt. It is a living organism that can grow through surfaces or existing paint and shorten the life of paintwork, which is why most warranties will be subject to a regular clean. Section 45(1)(b) of the Residential Tenancy Act 1986, the landlord must provide and maintain the premises in a reasonable state of cleanliness. And you'll see from the pictures what we have to deal with on a regular basis. Carting water across Auckland has increased our carbon footprint and more congestions on the road, and is a big capital cost to our business. The industry will not survive if it has to continue to cart water. We also see this as a major health and safety risk to the owner and staff. We have developed best practice guidelines in water efficiency based on the Queensland model. This will ensure we continue to see more water efficiency across our industry. The current graph you see in front of you, Auckland current daily usage is around 400 million litres a day. The volumes from the non-potable stations that have been set up in Auckland as of the 23rd of September is around 280,000 litres a day. Not all of this water is used in exterior cleaning. That non-potable water adds to his daily usage is around 0.2 0.07%, and we don't work 7 days a week. The current loss on the network is around 53 million litres a day, which is 13.6%. If we could improve the loss on the network by 0.5%, this would cover the amount used at non-potable stations by commercial industries. The purpose of the restrictions is to save water. Banning the exterior cleaners is not going to give massive savings. Under the current restriction, commercial have been asked to save 10%, residential 20 litres a day, our industry 100%. This has come at a huge price. Businesses have closed and jobs have been lost on the back of 2 COVIDs, 1 water restriction and a broken bridge. Please remember, we only use 0.7% of Auckland's water, but it puts food on our tables for families. So in closing, the impact on the exterior cleaning industry has been dramatic, and even if there is an easement in the restrictions approved today, the financial costs that we have already incurred will see some businesses and jobs lost. This is why we must ask, given the following volume of water we use, that you consider voting yes to an easement for the exterior cleaning industry. We have been disadvantaged because we use water outside where it is visual and do not have the luxury of using it indoor where it is hidden from the public. We are a low water user industry. The key number is 0.07%. It's a tiny number. So vote today to save our industry and the families that rely on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, for your presentation. The first question is from Councillor John Watson. John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Brian, for your presentation and for making it very clear that 0.07% usage that's been arrived at through the use in the non-potable sites. My question, Brian, that goes to you really goes to the reach of your association, which you referred to the best practice guidelines, which I've had a chance to have a look through myself, and are pretty impressive. What's the reach of your association out to the water cleaning businesses around Auckland, Brian? What kind of sort of uptake do you get from people in this business in terms of applying those best practice standards that you're working through now at your own initiative?
So those best practice guidelines were developed out of Queensland's water restriction in 2007, and that our president, which is Sean White, was part of the Queensland water restriction when he was over there. These guidelines have been taken up well by the members. If we get an easement to work, and part of that is implementing more robust training, we're happy to go out and train operators. They don't have to be members of the ECIA, but we can run training courses in water efficiency. It's a day's course. Yep. So, yeah, we've had a great uptake from the members, and our membership is growing on a regular basis.
And sorry, Mr. Mayor, just a quick follow-up. And I assume that membership of your association would develop along similar lines as far as the public goes. Is it like something like the Master Builders Association, where you would gain a degree of comfort in terms of that company's membership of your organisation? Is that how you see it?
Yes, correct. So this association's been put together quite quickly based on the water crisis, and our focus is just not Auckland. Our focus is New Zealand wide. We need to look after our precious resources, water, and we want to educate and train people on how to be more water efficient. As an industry, we are far more efficient than the home handyman with a water blaster that spends 2 days cleaning a driveway, where we can come over and knock it over in an hour's time. We're in business. And when you're in business, you're there to make money, so you become efficient. You look at the technology around water usage. We would have loved to have shown you some videos today and we're happy to follow through on that, on how efficient we are compared to a home handyman water blast that spends 8 hours on a water blast or 2 days to do something that we can do in an hour. And the water usage is horrific.
Thank you. Next question is from Deputy Mayor Bill Cashmore, who would probably contest that his skills at water blasting is any less than a professional. But Bill, your question.
Yeah, I would not contest that my skills at water blasting are anything like a professional, Mr. Mayor, but thanks for the uplift. It's most welcome. Yeah. So, again, thanks, Brian. And also I'd like to recognise Sean White and Michelle Atwell, who I've been talking to over the past 10 days about the actual realities here. Your usage as a percentage of Auckland's water, 0.07. And what does that actually mean to in litres? Because what we have is some confusion. The non-potable take is 280,000, and I know you're only a percentage of that. And I've got the list of all the people here who have actually been using non-potable water, and on a number of companies, you make up a bit over half. So do you have an actual number of usage, or is that just too hard to calculate?
Prior to the non-potable site, we contacted members and talked to a lot of people, and we worked out how much water could be used on a house. You know, a house wash could be around 700 litres, which is not much. You think about your washing machine, that uses around 230 litres, and some people do 2 loads a day. And we only want to clean their house once a year or once every 2 years. So that number we came to came prior to the non-potable stations, and then we went around and confirmed it, and we've been working with Watercare around those numbers. And the Rosedale non-potable site yesterday or 2 days ago, 96,000 litres. It was its biggest day. 10,000 litres went to the car wash industry. 10,000 went to the building industry. Another few thousand went to the drain industry. So that figure of that 0.07 is made up of everyone. So if you look at that, we're even a lower user than what we're actually saying. And you've got to remember too, we only work 5 days, 5.5 days a week. The industry's not working 7 days a week using that same volume, so the number drops even more. And we're not on the trigger all day long as well. So we're not just standing there squirting water. It's getting on site, setting up, all that, and we do a lot of brushing and bits and pieces. So yeah. So we are a very, very.
Thank you. I've lost you there for a moment, Brian. So we'll go straight to the third question, which is Councillor Greg Sayers.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Are you back online, Brian?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks. Well, look, just it's been good to see the way that you worked hard and put your efforts into organised industry. So congratulations on that. My question is follows on from probably both the previous questions. There is a possibility that Auckland Council and our officers could have concern around the people that perhaps aren't part of your association at the moment, and if they don't do their bit, it could reflect back in terms of the volumes that get used, and could ruin the opportunity that you're looking forward to, and we have to put the restrictions back in. So I just wondered if you had any comment about, I heard that you're trying to grow your membership, but would you have any comment, Brian, around perhaps others that aren't part of your membership potentially abusing the situation?
Good question. It's like the building industry. You can belong to association, but there's cowboys out there. We got that across all industries. We can't control everyone. They still won't, even there are some cowboys or road people out there, they still won't be a high user. But what we want to do is encourage people to join the association. But if they don't want to join the association, that's fine. But we're happy to provide training around using water efficient techniques that have been developed, and maybe even have a card. So if they go out to a site, they can say to the customer, hey, look, we've been trained. It's no different than working at heights or something. So it gives the customer sort of guarantee that, hey, these guys have put the time and effort in to be trained, and they know what they're doing, and then the homeowner will feel safe. You know, I've done some jobs just recently, or lots of jobs recently, and where the little old lady says, oh, you know, I don't really want to get my home clean because there's a water restriction, and you talk through to them how you do it and bits and pieces, and they're really happy about that. So if there's some sort of endorsement around our industry as a whole on water efficiency users, I think that will help. But yeah, the Cowboys, look, they're everywhere, and they just got to be policed by Watercare Council or whoever can help do that. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Brian. I'll ask Councillor John Watson to move and Councillor Greg Sayers to second that we receive your presentation and thank you for your attendance today. You're very welcome, of course, to listen in to the discussion that we have on the restrictions on water usage on our next item. You can listen to that online. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 To the contrary, no.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you very much. We come now to local board input. There are no requests for local board input. Item number 8 is extraordinary items. Nobody has indicated any extraordinary item for the agenda. So